Welcome everyone. Today we travel back nearly 2,000 years to meet one of the most remarkable leaders the world has ever known. His name was Marcus Aurelius, and his story teaches us something powerful about wisdom, duty, and the struggle to be a better person. Imagine Rome in the year 161 AD. The city is enormous and loud. Thousands of people fill the streets. The smell of bread, animals, and smoke hangs in the warm air. At the center of this great empire sits one man, the emperor. But this emperor is different from what you might expect. He does not spend his days at grand parties or celebrating his own power. Instead, he wakes before sunrise, sits quietly, and writes in a small personal journal. He is asking himself hard questions. How can I be better today? Did I act with patience yesterday? Was I fair? This man is Marcus Aurelius. And those private writings would one day become one of the most famous books in history. Marcus was born on April 26, 121 AD, in Rome. His family was wealthy and respected. From a very young age, people noticed that he was serious and thoughtful. He loved learning more than playing. While other boys ran through the streets, young Marcus sat with books and teachers. His early education was careful and deep. He studied grammar, mathematics, and rhetoric, the art of speaking well. But the subject that changed his life was philosophy, especially a school of thought called Stoicism. Stoicism taught that you cannot control what happens to you in life. You can only control how you respond. It taught that emotions like anger and fear can cloud your judgment. A wise person learns to stay calm, think clearly, and do what is right, even when it is very hard. For young Marcus, these ideas were not just interesting. They became the foundation of everything he did. When Marcus was around 17 years old, something extraordinary happened. The Emperor Hadrian noticed him. Hadrian had no children of his own, and he was looking for someone worthy to one day lead Rome. He saw in Marcus a young man of rare intelligence and good character. Hadrian arranged for Marcus to be adopted into the imperial family. This was a huge step. Suddenly, the quiet boy who loved books was being prepared to rule the greatest empire on earth. His training was intense. He studied law, military strategy, and the art of governing. He worked alongside the Emperor Antoninus Pius, who became like a father to him. Marcus watched, listened, and learned. He was patient. He did not rush. He understood that good leadership takes time to develop. In 161 AD, when Marcus was 39 years old, Antoninus Pius died. Marcus became emperor. But he immediately did something that surprised everyone around him. He refused to rule alone. He asked that his adoptive brother, Lucius Verus, be made co-emperor with equal power. This was almost unheard of in Roman history. Most emperors wanted all the power for themselves. Marcus chose to share it. He believed that good decisions come from more than one mind. This act alone tells us so much about who Marcus Aurelius was. But being emperor was not a peaceful life. Almost immediately, Rome faced serious problems. In the east, the Parthian Empire attacked Roman territories. In the north, Germanic tribes were pushing against Rome's borders. Plagues swept through the empire, killing thousands of people. Marcus had not chosen these problems. They came to him. And here is where his Stoic training truly showed itself. He did not panic. He did not blame others. He organized. He sent Lucius Verus to lead the Eastern campaign. He personally traveled to the northern frontier to manage the wars there. He spent years living in military camps, far from the comfort of Rome. Think about that for a moment. This was a man who loved books and quiet thinking. And yet he spent much of his reign sleeping in tents, eating simple soldiers' food, and leading armies in cold, muddy battlefields. Every night, no matter how tired he was, he wrote in his journal. He wrote about his failures. He wrote about moments when he lost his patience. He wrote about trying again tomorrow. These writings were never meant to be read by anyone else. They were completely private, a man talking honestly to himself. He called the journal simply, To Himself. We know it today as the Meditations. In the Meditations, Marcus writes things that feel surprisingly modern. He writes about waking up in the morning and not wanting to get out of bed. He writes about difficult people and how to deal with them with patience. He writes about the shortness of life and the importance of doing good now, not later. One of his most famous lines is this: "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." These are not the words of a man who thinks he is perfect. These are the words of someone who is trying, every single day, to be better. But here is what almost no one talks about. Marcus Aurelius faced a personal crisis that tested everything he believed. His wife, Faustina, gave birth to many children, but most of them died young. The grief of losing a child is one of the hardest things any person can experience. Marcus experienced it many times. And then there was his son, Commodus. Commodus was the opposite of his father in almost every way. Where Marcus was thoughtful, Commodus was impulsive. Where Marcus was humble, Commodus was arrogant. Marcus could see these qualities in his son, and it troubled him deeply. His Stoic philosophy told him to accept what he could not change. But as a father, he kept hoping. He gave Commodus the best teachers. He brought him along on military campaigns to teach him responsibility. He made him co-emperor in 177 AD, hoping that power and responsibility would help his son grow. It did not work. This is perhaps the most human part of Marcus Aurelius's story. He was one of the wisest leaders in history. He wrote beautifully about virtue and self-control. And yet, like any parent, he could not fully shape the person his child became. This reminds us that even today, wisdom does not mean having all the answers. It means continuing to try, even when the results are uncertain. Marcus spent the last years of his life on the northern frontier, fighting the Marcomannic wars against Germanic tribes. The conditions were harsh. The winters were brutal. Many of his soldiers were sick from the plague that had been spreading through the empire for years. And yet the Roman army, under Marcus, held the frontier. They did not win every battle. But they did not give up. Marcus led by example. He was present. He was visible to his soldiers. He shared their hardships. In March of 180 AD, Marcus Aurelius fell ill. He was 58 years old. The exact cause of his death is not certain. It may have been the plague, or another illness. He died near the city of Vindobona, which we know today as Vienna, Austria. The smoke-filled military camp fell silent as the news spread. Soldiers who had fought beside him for years wept openly. Even people who had never met him felt the loss. Rome had lost something rare, a leader who truly tried to be good. After his death, the Roman Senate gave him the title divus, meaning divine, or godlike. But Marcus himself would have found this uncomfortable. In his meditations, he wrote often about how all people, emperors and farmers alike, are equal in the most important ways. We all live. We all die. What matters is how we spend the time in between. The consequences of Marcus Aurelius's reign were significant. He kept the Roman Empire stable during a period of enormous pressure. He reformed laws to be more fair, especially for slaves and poor citizens. He promoted education and supported philosophers and teachers. But perhaps his greatest legacy is not political at all. It is the Meditations, that small, private journal written by a tired emperor in a cold military tent. The Meditations were not published during his lifetime. They were discovered after his death and copied by hand, passed from reader to reader across centuries. Today, they have been translated into nearly every language on earth. Millions of people read them every year. What do people find in those pages? They find a voice that sounds honest and familiar. They find someone who struggled with the same things we all struggle with: impatience, self-doubt, the desire to give up, the fear of failure. And they find, again and again, the same quiet message: do your duty, be kind, stay calm, and try again tomorrow. This reminds us that even today, the qualities that made Marcus Aurelius great are not mysterious or impossible. They are available to all of us. Patience. Honesty. The willingness to keep trying even when things are hard. Modern leaders, business people, athletes, and teachers all read the Meditations. It is studied in universities, recommended by psychologists, and quoted in speeches around the world. A book written nearly 2,000 years ago, never meant to be published, continues to help people live better lives. There is something deeply moving about that. So what does the story of Marcus Aurelius teach us about human nature? It teaches us that power does not automatically make a person wise or good. Wisdom must be practiced, every single day, like a skill. It must be chosen, even when it is difficult. Even when you are tired. Even when the results are uncertain. It teaches us that the most important battles are often the ones we fight inside ourselves, against our own impatience, our own fear, our own desire to take the easy path. And it teaches us something quietly hopeful. Marcus Aurelius was not a perfect man. He made mistakes. He could not save his son from his own worst qualities. He could not stop the plague or prevent every war. He was human, with all the limitations that come with being human. But he kept trying. Every morning, he woke up and tried again. He wrote down his failures not to punish himself, but to learn from them. He asked himself hard questions not because he had the answers, but because he believed the questions themselves were worth asking. Perhaps that is the deepest lesson of all. The measure of a person is not whether they are perfect. It is whether they keep reaching for something better, even knowing they will sometimes fall short. Marcus Aurelius reached for something better every single day of his life. And 2,000 years later, we are still reading his words, still learning from his struggle, still finding something in his quiet honesty that speaks directly to our own